At first, some technical talk. As far as I'm aware, in all of Poland there were 5 multiplexes broadcasting 29 free-to-air channels in DVB-T format. Multiplex 1 containing various commercial channels and TVP Polonia. Multiplex 2 containing the main commercial stations, Polsat TVN, TV Puls and other channels from these networks. Multiplex 3 broadcasting 6 channels from the Polish government television broadcasting corporation Telewizja Polska S.A., which translates to Polish television or TVP for short, namely TVP 1, 2, the regional 3, for example TVP 3 Olsztyn, Info, Sport and History. Multiplex 4 used for broadcasting encrypted TV channels and wydarzenia 24, and Multiplex 8 containing hybrid TV channels, ads and 6 normal channels, WP, Metro, Nova TV, TVP Kobieta, TVP Kultura and Zoom TV. As far as I'm aware, the campaign informing people of the broadcasting standard change started around 2 months from the first DVB-T switch-off date. The most notable campaign was probably the one that aired in radio and television that went Telewizja Polska przypomina. Nowy standard się zaczyna, which means Polish television reminds that the new standard is beginning. The transition was split into 4 different regions. The company responsible for broadcasting towers in Poland, Emitel, put up on their site a page with a map of changes due to the 700 MHz reframing. The map for Multiplex 3 has transition zones contained in individual provinces, while the map for Max 1, 2 and 4 did not have transition zones contained in the individual province districts. Multiplex 8 was unaffected. Days before the transition date, the Minister of International Affairs and Administration requested UKE, the Office of Electronic Communications, to permit TVP to broadcast on Multiplex 3 in the old standard until the end of 2023, and the request got accepted. The reason was related to the Russian invasion of Ukrainian lands and the disinformation that is supposedly a risk to the security of Poland and to the Polish reason of state. The major commercial networks protested, but as far as I'm aware, that went nowhere. In Article 21 of the Act on Broadcasting, which is about public broadcasters, it is detailed that TVP as a public television broadcaster is obligated to serve various programming options characterized by pluralism, impartiality, balance and independence, and innovation, quality and integrity of the message. The television is mostly funded by funds from the RTV subscription, basically a tax. Most of the money collected this way goes to TVP and or other national media. Since 2016, the chairman of TVP is elected by the National Media Council. As of November 29, 2021, Jacek Kurski was the chairman of TVP, and as far as I am aware, he still is the chairman. According to Wikipedia, the chairman of the National Media Council is Krzysztof Czabański. Jacek Kurski was born on the 22nd of February 1966. According to Wikipedia, he is a politician and a journalist. His association with right-wing press begins at the turn of the 80s and 90s in Tygodnik Solidarność, among others. He published a few books in the topic of basically defending the right-wing party. At the start of the 90s, he collaborated with Porozumienie Centrum, a right-wing Christian Democratic Party, and in charge of that party was Jarosław Kaczyński, the current leader of the right-wing party Prawo i Sprawiedliwość, or PiS for short. In 1990, 1993. Before the parliamentary elections, he was the chief of the electoral campaign. In these elections, he unsuccessfully ran for the Sejm, similar to the US Congress, from the PC list in Gdańsk. In the middle of the 90s, he joined Ruch Odbudowy Polski, another right-wing party, as the press spokesman. After another electoral failure, he left ROP with his fraction. Not much later, he joined Zjednoczenie Chrześcijańsko-Narodowe, yet another right-wing Christian Democratic Party in ZCHN. He took the position of vice president and president of the management board of the Pomeranian branch of ZCHN. In 1998, obtained the mandate of a councillor of the Pomeranian Regional Council. In the years 1998-2001, he was the deputy marshal of the Pomeranian province. In the 2001 same elections, he was a candidate from the Akcja Wyborcza Solidarność Prawicy list in the Toruń district. In the same district, the former Minister of Agriculture, Jacek Kurski, was to run from the last place on the AWSP list. Right before giving the list to the Electoral Commission, Jacek Kurski supposedly wrote before Jacek Janiszewski another person with the same last name. Because of this, he was excluded from the party. After AWSP lost the election, he joined PiS. After not getting a spot on the candidate list to the local elections in 2002, he left PiS to join Liga Polskich Rodzin. As an LPR candidate, he was re-elected to the regional council, taking the position of its vice chairman. He was the main author of the electoral campaign of LPR for the European Parliament. In 2004, he got into a conflict with the leader of the Pomeranian branch of LPR. As a result, he was excluded from the party and joined PiS for the second time. Skipping over a few years, he took part in Lech Kaczyński's electoral campaign during 2005. Among other things, he organized the PiS party conversion and changed the party logo. Before the second part of the elections, gave an authorized report to Angora, in which he concluded that serious sources on the Pomeranian province say that the grandpa of Donald Tusk volunteered for the Nazi German army. As a consequence of this interview, he was temporarily excluded from the party for a few days. In the 2007 parliamentary elections, Jacek Kurski got his second MP mandate in 2009 from the PiS list in the Olsztyn electoral district. He became an MEP of the seventh term. In a ranking of Polish MEPs for the first year, conducted by Polish journalists and experts in the topic of European politics, Jacek Kurski got the next to worst place. In addition, he had one of the worst attendance rates in the European Parliament. On November 4, 2011, the political committee of PiS has decided to exclude Jacek Kurski from the party. In 2012, he joined Solidarna Polska, in which party he claimed the role of vice chairman for 2 years in a row. On June 4, 2014, he announced his decision on a temporary withdrawal from politics and a resignation from all functions in SP. In July 2014, he attended a convention organized by PiS. On the same month, he was excluded from SP. On November the 20th of 2015, he was appointed Undersecretary of State in the Ministry of Culture and National Heritage. On January 7 of 2016, he was dismissed in relation to becoming the chairman at TVP the very next day. On August the 2nd, he was dismissed by the National Media Council, in which the majority were his MPs. Nevertheless, after a few hours, the NMC has withdrawn from this decision. On the 9th of March, the National Media Council resolution to dismiss Jacek Kurski from the position of TVP president came into force. The same day, he became an advisor to the board of TVP. On the 22nd of May 2020, the NMC has appointed him a member of the board of TVP. Then on July 24th, 2020, after the resignation of Maciej Łopiński from his function, TVP has announced that Jacek Kurski has basically become the chairman of TVP. On the 7th of August, the National Media Council has officially announced that Jacek Kurski is the chairman of TVP. I'll spare you the details about Kurski's court history documented on Wikipedia, as frankly that's irrelevant to what is and was happening since 2016 in terms of TVP controversies, and any relevant points will be mentioned when appropriate. According to Wikipedia, on the 30th of December 2015, a few weeks after peace won in the parliamentary elections, Sejm passed an amendment to the Act on Broadcasting, radically changing the way that management and supervisory boards of public media get appointed and dismissed, and in addition dismissed the current members of these boards. This act was presented by people related to peace, including President Andrzej Duda, as a way to restore impartiality, objectivity and credibility of public media, TVP specifically, and because, as Richard Terlecki representing peace documented in an article on virtualnemedia.pl put it, in my opinion, we were dealing with extremely unreliable work of public media, because if the media imagine that they will occupy polls with themselves for the next few weeks, that is, by criticizing our changes or our projects of change, then this must be stopped. On the 31st of December 2015, the Polish Senate has passed this amendment. This sparked a protest, which resulted with directors of TVP1 to Kultura, the television information agency, among others, resigning, and not much else. On 7th of January 2016, the Polish president Andrzej Duda has signed the amendment, which went into force the next day. As a result of this amendment, the chairman of TVP at the time, Janusz Daszyński, was dismissed and replaced with Jacek Kurski, politician from the Peace Party and well-known right-wing sympathizer. That amendment was in effect until the 30th of June 2016. On the 22nd of June 2016, the Sejm passed the Act on the National Media Council, Ustawa o Radzie Mediów Narodowych. The NMC consists of 3 people elected by the Sejm and 2 people elected by the largest opposition clubs, which are appointed by the president. This basically means that the majority vote goes to the people selected by the Sejm, in which the majority vote goes to the Peace Party. According to Wikipedia, Jacek Kurski has made some staff changes in TVP. One of the more controversial changes is the strong favoritism of the disco polo genre of music. Subjective opinion. Is disco polo music in mass entertainment broadcast by TVP almost at the same time as the amendment to the Act on Broadcasting. The TVP staff was beginning to be exchanged for more people connected to right-wing and conservative media, such as the weekly magazine W sieci, Gazeta Polska Codziennie, translation, Polish Post Daily, and Telewizja Trwała. Additionally, more people related to the right-wing side of journalistic and political scenes appeared in journalistic programs aired on TVP. Sometimes those people were directly related to the Peace Party. The viewers were not informed of such connections while watching such programs. After these changes, TVP was commonly criticized for the strong right-wing agenda, combined with discrediting any and all critique of the governing party, going against the mission of public television, and breaking rules of journalistic ethic, such as telling truth, objectivity, and separating comments from information. There were some controversies surrounding the process of picking Twitter posts to match the narrative as in TVP, mainly in TVP Info. Sometime later, Jacek Kurski has responded to these accusations by saying that criticizing the changes done in TVP is some part of a bigger plan, and said that TVP is a condition for pluralism in Poland. With the changes in Polish public media in 2015, the amount of complaints to the National Broadcasting Council, Polish, Krajowa Radia Radiofonii i Telewizji, KRT, regarding contents of the informational programming in TVP, namely the complaints were about the dishonesty, manipulation and bias shown among others in materials about Muslims. 82 in June of 2017, 66 regarding programming shown on TVP Info. According to research conducted by CBOS in September of 2021, when the participants of the survey were asked to rate on a scale of 1 to 5 how trustworthy TVP stations are, around 49% answered 2 or less. The rate of negative answers was much higher than TVN stations and Polsat stations combined, around 44%. The interesting thing is that when the study was split in groups of people divided by their political orientation and or affiliation and their political party preference, as people with left-wing political opinions statistically gave TVP stations on the same scale 1.51, TVN 3.67 and Polsat 3.56, while people with right-wing political opinions gave TVP 3.40, TVN 2.43 and Polsat 3.24. The same survey shows the strong TVP preference of the Peace electorate. On the same scale, the Peace electorate gave TVP 4.02, TVN 2.28 and Polsat 3.29, while the Lewica electorate gave TVP the lowest score in the survey, 1.26, TVN 3.81 and Polsat 3.56. Another interesting observation is that from 2017 the opinion that news programs shown on TVP are biased positively towards the current government, and the current governing party has strongly risen since the previous data point, which is dated at the end of 2012. According to the Polish Language Council, in a sample size of 306 of information bars announcing materials about major political events shown in the Wiadomości program on TVP1 between 2016 and 2017, only 93 didn't have any information dependent on the author. Additionally, the study suggests that TVP avoids displaying the official or customary names of entities responsible for particular political events presented to the public, sometimes opting for shortened names. Another interesting thing pointed out in the same study is that the authors of TVP's information bars more frequently presented actions of the opposition forces rather than the ruling coalition. The PLC has also recognized patterns of persuasion commonly used in these types of information bars. The important, in my opinion, patterns are, among others, rhetorical questions. Examples: who doesn't want a sovereign and strong Poland? Who is bothered by Polish patriotism? Cherry-picked quotes, and of course, information that isn't consistent with the content of the material, and sometimes information that is not consistent with facts. The most important pattern is the type of language contained in the information bars in wiadomości differs depending on the entity responsible for the actions outlined. Namely, if the entity is the governing coalition or an entity within the governing coalition, then positive linguistic terms are used. The same applies in regard to the value system of the governing coalition if the entity in question is critical of the governing coalition or in some other way perceived as hostile by the governing coalition. Then only negative linguistic terms and overgeneralization, among other linguistic tricks, are used towards such entity. The PLC in the conclusions outlined a number of things, but I think that the most important of them is the one at the end of the first point, which is wiadomości TVP do not provide citizens with objective information, but its own vision of the events in question. According to Oko.press, in 2019, KRRIT gave TVP 1,127,258,500 Polish zloty as a compensation for potential money lost due to the extension of exemptions from the RTV subscription. In 2020, TVP was given 1,711,500,000 Polish zloty of additional compensation. The notable thing is that the commercial stations got no compensation whatsoever, because according to information on bankier.pl, in 2020 they got nothing from the RTV subscription anyway. But let's get back to the topic of TVP. So on the 24th of June 2020, 4 days before the 2020 elections, a material called Przedwyborcza mobilizacja, pre-election mobilization, aired on TVP1 as a part of wiadomości, which was blatantly an election campaign but without a proper indication. For context, this material started with uplifting classical music. And just in the first minute, some of the manipulative linguistic behavior outlined in part 5 is already shown by just the material including some seemingly unrelated phrases. At 32 seconds,
Duma,
which means pride. At 41 seconds,
godność,
which means dignity. At 48 seconds,
szacunek,
which means respect. And at 59 seconds,
historia i tradycja,
which means history and tradition. These all are positive linguistic terms in the Polish language. As a result, a complaint was sent to the Polish Media Ethics Council, which concluded with the MEC agreeing with the accuser that TVP in this material broke all rules of the ethic media card, their own rules of journalistic ethic at Telewizja Polska S.A. In another part of the response, the MEC has criticized wiadomości TVP for being used in the presidential campaign as a tool for promoting Andrzej Duda and disparaging his biggest opponent, as reported by virtualmedia.pl on the 26th of June 2020. 21 complaints went to KRRIT as a result of this material. In the time frame that I have previously covered, there's almost nothing to add, but time did not stop at 2020, did it? No, of course not. So TVP has continued their behavior, adding more fuel to the debate about politicization of the Polish public television. But before I briefly cover these actions, I would like to admit that this part is not researched as well as previous parts, as writing this script has took the best part of a month as of the day of writing this part of this script, July the 20th of 2022. TVP is still using some manipulative language in their information bars. My favorite is Tusk bezradny wobec inflacji. Tusk helpless in the face of inflation, which kind of goes without saying. Additionally, as reported by Gazeta Wyborcza, TVP had at least one of their lawsuits accusing Agora SA of allegedly committing an act of unfair competition because the article Kurski ozdrowiał bez podstaw. Kurski held without any basis, which was published on Gazeta Wyborcza, allegedly contained the phrase that Jacek Kurski broke the law. Regarding his dismissal from his isolation due to a positive SARS-CoV-2 test based on PCR technology. Dismissed. Again, according to Gazeta Wyborcza, during the Platforma Obywatelska Political Party convention, TVP Info was broadcasting, among other things, sheep in Zakopane, then rain, then some news, then a rerun of footage from Inowrocław of Jarosław Kaczyński. The end. For now. This is the end of this video. Don't expect a new video for a long time, as I have very limited time to record my voice without interruption. If you don't like this video for any reason, dislike it, preferably with the extension restoring dislikes. Bye.